Creating the perfect portrait picture can be challenging to many portrait photographers, especially to newbies. This is because of the many factors that needs to be considered when it comes to achieving the perfect shot. In this video, I am going to show you 8 common mistakes when it comes to portrait photography and how to avoid them. But before that, hit intro. One of the common mistakes that other photographers commit, and even I sometimes experience, is not checking the background. This is very common in outdoor photography. There are times that the photographer will not notice the car behind the subject or trees coming out of the head of the subject. This mistake can be easily avoided if the photographer will just pan to the side until those unwanted elements are no longer visible in the shot. And this will also save you a lot of time in your post-processing. Choosing the right lens for your project is very important. There are plenty of available lenses out there in the market, but you have to remember that these lenses are made for different purposes. My go-to lens when it comes to portrait photography is 70-100 2.8. This is because this lens is really good in portrait shots if you want to separate your subject to your background. Most of the time, if you have a blurred background, it is very pleasing to the eye to look at. There are other photographers out there who prefer using prime lenses like 85mm, 50mm, or even 35mm for their portrait shots. This is because these lenses are really good because it's really sharp and it doesn't have a distortion. Another common mistake that most portrait photographers commit is not taking notice of small details. These small details are pen or pencils or even cell phones in the pockets, unwanted hair on the face, huge prints on the shirt, and sometimes jewelry that has nothing to do with the portrait shot. These small details will save you a lot of time in your post process, and trust me, this will help you become a better photographer. Another common mistake that every beginners in portrait photography commit is not understanding light. You need to understand how light works. You need to know on how light will affect your subject. You need to know what is a soft light, what is a hard light. You need to know how soft light works, or when to use a soft light, when to use a hard light. You also need to know what is an ambient light, know what is a natural light, when to use the ambient light, and when to use the natural light. And you also need to know on how to use a natural light if you don't have an artificial light, and when to use or how to use an artificial light if there's no ambient light or natural light available. Once you have mastered how light works, you will be able to create an amazing images, whether it is natural light or artificial light. Another common mistake is by not giving enough direction to your subject. You have to understand that you will not work with professional models all the time. That means you will be working with ordinary people and they would not know what to do in front of the camera. You need to tell them the emotions and body movement that they need to portray in front of the camera. You need to tell them where their light is, when to face the light, and when not to face the light. Another common mistake is by not focusing on the eye. You have to understand that every viewer will first look at the eyes of your subject. If your photo is focused mainly on the hair, clothes, or surrounding, it will never satisfy your viewer. Another common mistake is by not adding elements. You have to play around with your subject. You need to experiment. You need to add leading lines, patterns, colors, background, and foreground. If you will do this, you will add color, excitement, and impact to your image. And last but not the least, not shooting in RAW. Every photographers know the importance of RAW format because in RAW format, it will give you a lot of flexibility in your post-processing. Unlike if you will shoot in JPEG, whatever settings you do during your photo shoot, that's it. You can no longer change it. You can still change it, but it will not be as good as a RAW format. It will not look as natural as RAW format. And that's my top 8 common photography mistakes that you need to avoid. Now go out there and start practicing. Use these 8 useful tips in order for you to achieve an outstanding photos. I hope you learned something in my video today, and please do not forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't yet. I hope to see you in my next video, and be safe.